Welcome to Wealth Hustle 247 podcast, your trusted guide to financial literacy, business innovation, and entrepreneurial success. Learn how to grow your wealth, make informed decisions, and turn your ideas into profitable ventures.
Ever wonder why some people attract wealth effortlessly while others push it away? In this episode, we uncover the attitudes and habits that attract and keep wealth versus those that repel it. Let's break it down.
Another deep dive. This time we're tackling something that I know is on a lot of people's minds: how to attract wealth, and maybe more importantly, how to avoid repelling it.
Right. Yeah. I think we tend to get stuck thinking about wealth just in terms of like dollars and cents, you know?
Exactly. But there's got to be something more to it than that.
Oh, it's absolutely, yeah.
So to try to get to the bottom of it, we're going to be referencing this paper today: Attitudes and Habits that Attract and Keep Wealth versus those that repel wealth.
And you know what's really interesting about all this is a lot of these principles actually apply beyond just personal finance too. Like if you're trying to build a business or really accomplish any kind of big goal, you got to have the right kind of mindset. Let's call it a prosperity mindset, maybe.
I like that prosperity mindset. That's good. So let's dig into this paper now. The first thing it talks about is financial literacy. But they make it clear that it's not just about knowing like the basics of banking and stuff.
Yeah, it's not just about knowing the basics. It's about taking control. It's about really mastering your money.
Okay, so like what would be an example of that?
So like, let's say you've got $1,000. You could just put it in a savings account and, kind of just watch it grow really slowly over time.
Right.
But if you actually understand how to use different investment vehicles, I mean, that's where you can really start to see a difference.
Okay, so like what kinds of investment vehicles are we talking about?
Well, I mean, even just knowing the difference between like a stock and a bond is huge. Or realizing how powerful real estate can be as a wealth building tool.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It's not just having the knowledge, it's knowing how to use it.
Yeah. So it's almost like the difference between reading a cookbook and actually being a chef. You could read all the recipes you want.
Right.
But until you actually get in the kitchen and start practicing those skills,
Yeah, you're not going to make anything delicious.
you're not making anything. Now, another thing that really stood out in this paper was this whole concept of having a goal-oriented mindset. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that it's not enough to just dream about being wealthy, right? Like we all want to be financially secure. But the paper really emphasizes this idea of setting achievable milestones.
Yeah. Okay, so break that down for me. What does that look like in practice?
So instead of just like vaguely telling yourself, oh, I want to invest more, think about using something like the SMART goals framework.
Okay, I've heard of SMART goals. Remind me what that stands for again.
So it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So like instead of just saying, I'm going to invest more, you say,
I'm going to invest, like 10% of my income every single month this year.
oh, okay. That's much more specific and measurable. I need to write that down. So another thing the paper stresses is something that seems pretty basic on the surface: being consistent with your savings and your investments. I mean, we all know that even small amounts can have a big impact over time.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where the whole magic of compounding comes into play.
Okay, so can you give us an example of the power of compounding?
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine this. Let's say you invest just $1,000 today, right? And let's say you're getting a 7% annual return. Now, if you just leave that money alone for 30 years without adding another single penny to it, that investment could grow to be over $10,000.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
It's like that snowball rolling downhill. Every year it's picking up more snow and getting bigger and bigger.
Oh, I like that analogy, yeah.
Yeah, and the point is, the earlier you start, even if it's with small amounts, the more time that snowball has to grow.
That's a really great point.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, life doesn't always go according to plan.
Yeah.
There are unexpected expenses, there are market fluctuations. How does this growth mindset that the paper talks about help us to navigate those challenges?
Well, it's all about resilience. It's about being able to adapt and learn from any setbacks that come your way. So instead of being completely devastated by like a market downturn, you can actually start to view it as an opportunity.
Okay, so like an opportunity to do what?
An opportunity to maybe buy some assets that have become undervalued. It's all about having that glass half full mentality when it comes to your finances.
So it's not just about bouncing back from setbacks. It's
Yeah.
about bouncing back even stronger.
Exactly, yeah. And it's about constantly seeking ways to improve your financial knowledge and skills.
Okay, makes sense. Now this next one I know I personally struggle with.
Oh.
This whole idea of discipline and delayed gratification. It's so easy to get caught up in that treat yourself mentality sometimes.
Me too. It's a constant battle.
Yeah.
But the paper makes a really strong argument for why we need to prioritize long-term goals over those immediate impulses. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new purchase or a fun experience, but it's important to ask yourself, is this going to help me reach my long-term financial goals?
So can you give us an example of how that might play out in real life?
Yeah, sure. So let's say you get a bonus at work. Now, you could use that money to go on vacation, or you could buy yourself something nice, but you could also use it to invest in your retirement fund.
Right. Two very different choices.
Exactly. And it's not about depriving yourself. It's about making conscious choices that align with your future self's well-being.
So it's really about playing the long game,
Exactly.
being strategic with your money. Now, the paper moves beyond personal finances at a certain point and gets into this really interesting concept of value creation. How does that tie into attracting wealth?
Well, this is where things start to get really interesting. True wealth, at its core, really comes from solving problems and offering something valuable to the world.
So can you give us an example of what that looks like?
Think about the entrepreneurs who created companies like Google or Tesla. They saw a need, and they came up with innovative solutions that created immense value. And yeah, they made a ton of money in the process, but it wasn't just about making money for them, it was about making a real difference in the world.
Yeah.
So it's about more than just personal gain, it's about contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Okay, that's a great point. Now, we've heard the saying, it's not always just what you know, it's who you know. And the paper actually talks about the importance of networking and building relationships. Why is that so crucial when it comes to attracting wealth?
Well, your relationships are like the currency of opportunity. If you surround yourself with a diverse network of people you know, like mentors, collaborators, and other people who are on a similar path as you, that can open doors that you might not have even known existed.
So it's really about expanding your horizons.
Yeah, it's about making those genuine connections, sharing knowledge, and supporting each other's growth.
Okay, so it's not just about what you know. It's not just about who you know. It's also about your attitude towards money itself. The paper talks about having a positive attitude towards money. Is that really a factor?
It's a huge factor. Money is a tool, Like any tool, it can be used for good or bad, but it's really our attitude that shapes how we use it.
So how can we cultivate a more positive attitude towards money?
Well, think about money as a resource that helps you to achieve your goals and make a positive impact on the world. If you can see money in that light, it fosters a sense of abundance and empowers you to use it wisely.
So it's about shifting our perspective from fear and scarcity to empowerment and possibility. But let's be real, the world of finance is constantly changing, especially with all this technology that's coming out all the time. So how does continuous learning fit into all of this?
So it's more important now than it's ever been. The financial landscape is transforming so rapidly thanks to technology. You have online banking, budgeting apps, robo-advisors. Things are changing all the time.
Yeah.
Embracing those new tools and strategies is key to staying ahead of the curve. And it's all about staying curious,
So it's about becoming a lifelong student of personal finance.
Exactly. You got to be willing to adapt and learn new things all the time.
Okay, so we've talked about financial literacy, goal setting, consistency, a growth mindset, discipline, value creation, networking, and having a positive attitude towards money. That's a lot to take in. Is there anything else we should be focusing on when it comes to attracting wealth?
Well, the paper also talks about the importance of gratitude and giving.
Okay, that's interesting. Why are those things important?
Because they help you to recognize that true wealth extends beyond just financial resources. Being grateful for what you already have, no matter how small, helps to foster a sense of abundance. And using your resources to give back to others creates this ripple effect of positivity that can really enrich your life.
So it's about recognizing that money is just one part of the equation.
Exactly.
And that true abundance comes from having a grateful heart and a generous spirit. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the positive habits and attitudes that can help us to attract wealth. But I'm also curious about the flip side of that coin. What are some of the things that might actually be repelling wealth from our lives?
Yeah. Let's dive into that. You might be surprised by how common some of these habits actually are. We've probably all been guilty of at least a few of them at some point, right?
Oh, absolutely. I know I have. So let's get into it. What are some of those wealth-repelling habits we should watch out for?
Well, let's start with the first one on the list. A lack of financial discipline. It's like you're trying to build a house on a foundation of sand. know?
Yeah, that's not going to get you very far, is it? I think we've all been there, though. You overspend or you blow your budget, and you make all those impulse purchases that seem like such a good idea at the time.
Exactly. And it's usually a combination of things like maybe you don't have that solid financial literacy foundation to really understand how to manage your money well. Or sometimes it's emotional spending. You're trying to fill some kind of void with stuff. But the good news is that those are habits that can be changed.
Okay, so hope for us impulsive shoppers. Now, I know another big one that the paper talks about is the whole scarcity mindset. What exactly is that?
It's that feeling that there's never enough, that fear of lack or that fear of loss. So people who have this scarcity mindset, they tend to hoard their resources and they avoid taking risks because they're so afraid of what they could lose.
Yeah, I could see how that would be super limiting. It's like you're going through life with the brakes on all the time.
Precisely. And it can become this self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're convinced that there's not enough to go around, then you're going to act in ways that just reinforce that belief.
Yeah, it's like you get trapped in this cycle of scarcity. Okay, so we've got lack of discipline, we've got the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
What's next on this list of wealth repellents?
Well, it's the one that we're all guilty of sometimes. Procrastination.
Ugh, yes. I know this one all too well.
We all put things off sometimes, but when it comes to your finances, it can have some serious consequences.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
I'm always telling myself, oh, I'll start saving next month, or I'll get around to creating a budget, Todd, eventually.
The problem is that the longer you put it off, the harder it gets to catch up. Think about saving for retirement, for example. The earlier you start, the more time you have for that money to grow.
That's why they say compounding is so powerful, right?
Exactly. So every time you hit that snooze button on your financial goals, you're basically missing out on that potential growth.
Ouch. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So no more procrastination. Okay, what else do we need to watch out for?
Overconfidence or ignorance, especially when it comes to your finances.
Yeah. It's easy to think you know everything, right?
It's so tempting to think we have it all figured out. But the reality is that the world of finance is really complex. It's constantly changing. There's always something new to learn.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in those get-rich-quick schemes or make risky investments without really doing your homework.
Exactly. You need to have some humility and acknowledge that you don't know everything. Seeking out expert advice, doing your research, and staying informed, that's what smart investors do.
It's like you shouldn't be afraid to ask for directions, even if you think you know where you're going. Okay, so let's talk about impulse spending. I think this is something we all struggle with at least a little bit.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in the moment, isn't it? You see something shiny and new, or you have a bad day, and you just feel like you deserve a treat.
I feel very seen right now.
But the key is to create systems that will help you to make more mindful decisions.
So what kind of systems are we talking about?
Well, having a budget is obviously super important, but it's also about becoming aware of your spending triggers. Like, what are the situations or the emotions that make you more likely to impulse buy?
Okay, yeah. I've never thought about it that way. For me, I think it's when I'm stressed or bored that I'm more likely to do some online shopping.
Exactly. And once you know your triggers, you can start to develop strategies to overcome them.
Okay, so what kind of strategies are we talking about?
One really helpful strategy is to use waiting periods. Like, let's say you're about to buy something that you don't really need. Instead of just buying it right away, force yourself to wait like a day or two. Oftentimes, that urge to buy will just disappear.
Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's right now. Now, another thing that the paper mentions is something called the lottery mentality. Can you explain what that is?
So the lottery mentality is basically this belief that luck is the key to financial success. And, while it's fun to dream about winning the lottery, pinning your hopes on those kinds of random events is not a solid strategy for building wealth.
It's like you're hoping to get struck by financial lightning instead of actually putting in the work.
Exactly. Building wealth is about consistent effort. It's about making smart decisions and having a long-term perspective.
So it's about being the architect of your own financial future, not just waiting around for something good to happen. Now, earlier we were talking about how important it is to have a positive attitude towards money. But what about when we have a negative attitude towards wealth? How does that play into things?
Yeah. That can be just as damaging as any of these other bad habits we've been talking about. If you believe that money is evil or that wealthy people are all greedy, those beliefs are going to create a lot of resistance to attracting wealth into your own life.
So it's like you have this internal conflict going on. On the one hand, you want to be financially secure, but then on the other hand, you might feel guilty or ashamed about it.
Exactly. And that conflict can really sabotage your efforts. That's why it's so important to examine those limiting beliefs and find a way to reframe your relationship with money. You need to see it as a force for good.
So it's about remembering that money is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. Okay, so another thing the paper talks about is accountability. How does that factor into the equation?
Without accountability, it's just way too easy to let those bad habits creep back in.
So what are some practical ways that we can build more accountability into our financial lives?
Having a budget and tracking your spending are great first steps, but you can also find an accountability partner. This could be a friend or family member, or maybe even a financial advisor, anyone you trust who can offer you support and encouragement.
It's like having a workout buddy for your finances.
Exactly. Someone to help keep you on track. And don't forget to check in with yourself regularly, too. Review your budget, track your progress, and celebrate your wins.
Oh yeah, it's so important to celebrate those wins. We need that positive reinforcement. Okay, so we've talked about discipline, scarcity mindset, procrastination, overconfidence, impulse spending, lottery mentality, a negative attitude toward money, and lack of accountability. What else is there?
The last one might surprise you. It's resistance to change.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Why is resistance to change a problem when it comes to finances?
Well, think about how much the financial landscape has changed, even just in the last decade. We've got online banking, budgeting apps, robo-advisors. I mean, a lot of these tools didn't even exist 10 years ago.
It's true. Technology moves so quickly, especially when it comes to finances.
Exactly. And if you're clinging to outdated methods, you're going to miss out on all the benefits these new technologies have to offer.
It's like you don't want to be the only one still using a typewriter when everyone else has moved on to laptops and smartphones. Okay, so embracing change is important. Anything else?
The last one, and this one's a biggie, is envy and comparison.
No, that's a tough one. Especially with social media these days, it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people.
Right, and it's a recipe for disaster. We see these carefully curated versions of people's lives online, and we start to feel like we're not good enough, like we're falling behind.
Yeah, it's like we're comparing our blooper reel to everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly, and it can lead to some really bad financial decisions, like maybe you make impulse purchases to try to keep up with the Joneses, or you take on more debt than you can handle just to impress other people.
So how do we break free from that comparison trap?
Well, it starts with gratitude. Being thankful for what you have and celebrating your own accomplishments, that's so important. And you have to remember that you're on your own unique journey. There's no one right way to achieve financial success.
It's about defining success on your own terms, not letting other people define it for you.
Wow.
We have covered a lot of ground today. It's incredible how much our attitudes and habits really do impact our financial well-being.
Yeah, it's all interconnected.
It really is. So before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, for someone who's listening to all this and maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed, where would you suggest they start? What's one small step they can take today to get moving in the right direction?
That's a great question. And you're right, it can feel overwhelming when you realize just how many different things can impact your financial well-being. But if you're feeling lost, the best place to start is with awareness. Just spend a few days becoming more mindful of your spending habits and your thoughts about money.
Okay, so start by tracking your expenses and noticing your money mindset.
Exactly. For a week, just write down every single thing that you buy, no matter how big or small. And just start to notice any patterns or any impulse purchases that you could maybe cut back on. And pay attention to your thoughts about money. Do you approach it from a place of scarcity or abundance? Anxiety or excitement?
So it's about shining a light on those unconscious habits that might be holding you back.
Right. And once you have a better understanding of where you are right now, you can start setting small, achievable goals. You don't have to try to change everything overnight. Just focus on one or two things at a time. Maybe it's packing your lunch a couple times a week or setting up an automatic transfer to your savings account. Just small things to get the ball rolling.
So baby steps.
Exactly. And don't forget to celebrate those small wins along the way. It's really important to acknowledge your progress and give yourself credit for the effort you're putting in.
That's a great point. We need to celebrate those milestones. So maybe set a small financial goal for yourself, like saving up for a weekend getaway or something. Yeah. And then when you reach that goal, do something nice for yourself.
Exactly. It reinforces those positive behaviors and it makes the journey more enjoyable. Building wealth shouldn't be a constant struggle. It's about finding that alignment between your actions and your aspirations and creating a life of both abundance and fulfillment.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I'm amazed at how interconnected our attitudes, habits, and overall well-being really are. I'm sure listeners are feeling inspired to make some positive changes in their lives.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, knowledge is power, but only when it's applied. So take what you've learned today and start putting it into practice. So true. You don't have to become a financial guru overnight. Just take it one step at a time, and before you know it, you'll be well on your way to creating the life of your dreams.
Well said. It's a journey. Enjoy the process, celebrate the wins, and never stop learning and growing.
Great advice. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of attracting and repelling wealth. We'll see you next time for another deep dive. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reaching for your goals.
That's it for today's episode of Wealth Hustle 247. Be sure to follow, like, comment, and share with others. Keep pushing toward your goals, and we'll see you in the next episode.